two of my classmates were on the ward with me. One was a full-time employee for the hospital. One was schizophrenic, and we all knew each other. So the guy who's working there he's not judgmental. He's one of the most beautiful souls I know. He's helping people every day. He's trying to help me. He's trying to help her. And I'm talking to her because we were in a fashion show together. She's like, what are you doing here? I'm doing, what are you doing here? And she had schizophrenia. And I got hammered. Life is unpredictable. But if we can give each other a hand up somehow and at least be openly communicate, it's not, I'm sorry, I'm not an unrealistic dreamer, but I'm...
Try and think of this. The part of your body that got affected was from your neck up.
Yeah.
For me, it's from my neck down.
Right, interesting.
So it's if you combine the two of us, we could win a few championships pretty easily. But it's a different story, you know?
Yes.
Because my brain was never affected at all. I never felt like I was inferior to someone like you. I just felt I couldn't do things like someone like you could, and I wish I could have. What I remember about you was, it's funny, when we played, it was the first time we had met, and we're in the finals of a tournament. It was a nasty Monday, and it was
I think
cold.
you were up 3-0, and I thought, I better frigging turn this around.
But it was cold, and you were a better player, so you beat me. At the end of the match, when I shook your hand, I asked you, I mean, some guy was blabbing on about you win this and I win this, and my kids were saying, can we get out of here now? And I'm saying, no. I said, you got to stay because it's his time, it's his moment, so let's let things shine for this nice guy who beat me on the wrong day, you know. So I asked you, I go, what do you do for exercise other than play tennis? And you told me that you go to the MAA, I think, and you told me you do yoga. And I go, oh, you do yoga? How many times a week? And you said 4. And I said, you bastard, I only do it 3 times a week. So that was basically the difference. So I left there saying, okay, if I want to lift my level, I got to do more. So that's just that was in my blood.
Right.
So I had the brain working pretty well. I didn't beat myself up because I lost, you know.
But you're mentally strong, and you know, because some of the challenges people have that lead to the depression and anxiety, obviously, are getting sideswiped in their life by something very tough. Est-ce que tu as commencé? It's already going.
It's already going.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that.
You cut it, and you.
Oh, okay, that's good. So no, it's fine. So no, then that's great. I
fix his hair. Okay.
Yeah.
For your hair's.
My hair screwed up.
Yeah, you screwed it on better. That's
okay.
good.
That's better. So listen, I'll just say a couple of words then, not knowing. I don't mind. Look, this is doesn't have to be perfect. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you, David. We're old friends, lifetime friends. I set this up, called the Pin Podcast to start, okay? And it's based on this concept that every man and woman in the world can get pinned by life circumstances or could get sideswiped by some health issue. Could be schizophrenia or bipolarity if it's a mental health issue, but that nobody should be considered to be weak. They get pinned by the weight of these things. And I built this analogy of anybody, the strongest man or woman in the world, can take a bar in the gym, do the bench press, and the only way it counts is if they can no longer lift the last rep off of their chest. And that's like the great equalizer. The strongest man or woman in the world will get stuck. Everybody has a breaking point. And so hopefully in these conversations, it lends a hand up to ourselves in conversation, but also to others learning from lessons. But I'll tell you the big thing to start. So I called it the Pin Podcast, but I realized that's actually not what I'm trying to do, and people don't even understand what that means unless I explain it to them. So I've switched the name, and you're the first guest, and this is the best thing for the podcast, which going forward is going to be called Time for a Hand Up! Because that's exactly what it is. You know, a hand up in the bench press. If you're stuck under 45 pounds, we could get a 5-year-old to put 2 fingers and they could help you lift it off your chest. And so these conversations are not some miraculous solution or like to anybody's challenges, but they're supposed to be a tiny little nudge hand up to get them started on realizing that, you know, that they're not weak. They have some challenges that others can jump in and try to help them with. and give them a hand up, and then get in whatever support you need. And we'll come back to some of those other points.
It's funny you say that, because how I got injured was in a beginner's surfing lesson in Hawaii. And they took a group of us and they asked us to get on the board in shallow water. And they should have told us to do it in deep water. I made 2 turns and I fell on my neck. And I when I got up, I felt my legs like you hit your elbow on the table, like your funny bone.
Right.
And I felt it go all the way down to my legs, to my toes. And I go, well, this is not good. And the next thing I know, I had lost my mobility and I couldn't move my legs. And I found myself wearing a belt for a life jacket. And the belt turned me upside down into the water. So I was drowning.
Wow.
And I'm saying to myself, it didn't hurt when I fell. I'm paralyzed now. This can't be. So I started going through my mind what my life had been all about. And I kind of tried to yell out, help. My voice was much worse than it is now. I could barely talk. And the next thing I know, somebody gave me that hand up. Somebody came and picked me up and put me on the surfboard and swam me to shore. And the next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. So I had the hand up immediately.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I would be dead if that unknown person had done that. So whoever it is, thank you. I still don't know who it was.
Right.
So,
No, that's amazing, and that's an incredibly intense example. Like everybody in the world can understand a general concept of a hand up, and life is a team game. When I'm strong, I'll do lots of things for people. When I'm weak, I need some help, and I needed a lot of help then, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
Same. I was going to die. I had my lung capacity at that point, I had 45 seconds if I was lucky. So somebody came around and gave me a physical boost. The mental boost I needed and still need for the next 7 years to try and recover my movements. I can move my arms. I can't touch my face. I can only touch to my knee. So I'm totally dependent. So I need caregivers to help me out. They're sometimes a big help too with the hands up or hands on kind of thing. My family is, and I'm pretty open about it. I do admit though that when I first became injured and they let me out of the hospital 11 months after I was in the hospital, I was like, I would see a familiar face and I would avoid them. I just didn't want to have to repeat the story, over and over again. So I kind of hid out too. I was a bit of a hermit and a recluse.
Well, I remember reaching out to you sometimes, and you did like correspond. I did come and visit you, but there were a couple of times when I could tell you weren't interested, and I had to respect that because I would imagine
I was drugged up.
Right, sure, yeah.
To get a guy like you to come in, I'd have to be crazy not to let you come in. You know what I mean? But you know, after a certain age, that there's people with kindness and empathy, and those are the people that you want to lean on if you have to. There's others that ask questions and don't even bother to listen to the answers for, and you become acutely aware of who's what and who's not.
You know what I'm very happy to see though? I'm happy to see your movement with your hands, because even if it's limited, it's actually better than I thought, and I think that gives me hope, because we've talked about this and it's true. I have a new can of balls. Whatever it is, that's my dream. You'll be invited to any time, and even if it starts, it doesn't have to be like, if you're not, I don't think you're going to be acing me and beating me 6-0. I'm not going to bet on that, but
I would bet on the opposite. Big time.
Right. And I'll go back to tennis for a sec. Here's an offer for you, and you can think about it, and you don't have to tell me today, but I'll put it out here for you. So you might know I'm vice president of the Mount Royal right now. I'm on the board. I'm VP. I'm in line to be the next president of the board. I don't know.
Tennis club?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you knew that.
No.
So maybe I'll get impeached. There's no guarantees, but otherwise, I could be after next year the next president. So I'm looking for a passionate, intelligent advisor. The only problem is I can only offer $1 a day, or not $1 a day. That's too much. $1 a year with considerations. But I will offer you now. You can tell me some other time, and you can flatly refuse it, because you could be my special advisor when I'm president, if I'm president. So
sure, I'll help you I'll help you when I can. That's not a problem. Tennis is a great game. It's a great club. I'm not sure how many people can relate who aren't a member of the club to how lucky we were or are to be a member of that place. Right. That's for sure. But thanks.
Yep. Tell me about Wimbledon. You got to go to Wimbledon. What was that like?
It was amazing. The best part of it, I got to bring my daughter with me. So Emily, who's now 27, got to go play with me at Wimbledon. And if you didn't know it, there's 2 different surfaces of courts at Wimbledon. There's one clay court near the church.
I had no idea.
And we got booted off of one of the major courts on a Sunday after the tournament was over because there were 4 people and we were only 2. So we got relegated to the clay court at the end of the club. So I'm one of the few in the world that knows that there's 2 different surfaces there. But she was a good tennis player and she enjoyed it very much. So to get someone to go to a club like that was amazing. The guy who taught me tennis, Jocelyn Robichaud, he won the juniors there. Right. So he was a major good tennis player. He knew I knew when he taught me in my first lesson that I should never ever give up my day job. So he was that good.
And what else happened there? Did they have a special dinner, special something, or what?
They made you feel like kings and queens for, I think, 2 nights and 3 days. We stayed at a hotel where all the players stay at.
Yeah.
We walked across the village green to go to the club. Took about 20 minutes, so you get to soak in the English atmosphere. And then we played round robin against 3 or 4 different clubs from different countries, including Canada. And then at the end of the day, they had dinners for us at the club, and they had a dinner for us where the champions dinner is on the last night.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Wow. So normally nobody gets to go there unless you actually win, right? Is that the champions dinner or the champions?
You're not allowed to attend that unless you're a member or unless you've won the tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but they kicked us out right after. So our illusions were. Our illusions of grandeur were dimmed quite quickly.
And did you win? Did you win your matches, or how did that go?
We played 4 matches. Yeah. I played with Alistair Donald.
Yeah.
And we won our first match, and then we got destroyed in our next 3. Right. So, and Wimbledon, who was in every section of this draw, didn't lose a match.
Wow.
They'd seen it all. I mean, they get to play with Federer when I get to play with Jocelyn Robichaud.
Sure.
There's a big difference between those 2, even though Jocelyn was amazing too.
Right. So. And what I'm just trying to think. So did they come over to Canada, to the Mount Royal? The same people?
We've invited them. There's still an open invitation.
Right.
Ashley Tatum, if you're listening, you're still invited. So that's he was my host. They gave each player like a Wimbledon host. Okay. So if we forgot something at the hotel, he would drive us back and come and get us. It was something that Mount Royal should consider doing for clubs of that stature.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. So you're already earning your $1 a year for that advice to me.
There you go.
That's good. So and we made an interesting trade. We were speaking about it before the camera started rolling, but I got a hat and you got a ball. So I don't know if you want to tell everybody about that. That's an interesting trade we made, I think.
We had to make we decided as the group who was going over, I think there was, like, I'll guess 12 men and 12 women who went over, and each of us had to find something Canadian representing tennis to give to our hosts. So we made up a box. I used to be in the box manufacturing business, and somebody bought maple syrup, somebody gave a hat, somebody gave a racket, somebody gave a ball, etc., and a shirt, Mount Royal Tennis Club shirt, and we gave it to them as a gift. So hopefully they're still using parts of it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough. I had friends who organized an exhibition in Toronto at a big stadium with Jim Courier and John McEnroe and Mark Philippoussis and some other people. So I was invited to a special cocktail and got to meet these guys, and I got, nice picture with McEnroe and Philippoussis, and then I had a signed ball. So I managed to finagle one of those hats out of you in return for a ball with McEnroe and Philippoussis.
That's pretty cool. You should have brought those guys over to Wimbledon. You would have done better than we did.
I think so.
I think so too.
And I'm glad you trust me, because those signatures on the ball are hard to read. So I hope you don't think that, because it would have possibly been my 8-year-old daughter who took out a Sharpie and just did it for you. But you have to trust me that was really McEnroe and Philippoussis.
I trust you. That's okay.
Tell me a bit about hockey, because you were a varsity player in Vermont, right? So obviously you were like a serious hockey player.
I never played in Vermont. Colgate University.
Oh, I thought it was Vermont.
In upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
In the middle of nowhere.
Okay,
but
I got it.
I gave up hockey because I got injured too often.
Okay.
So I broke my collarbones 5 different times.
Wow, that's
you know,
crazy.
When a sport is in your blood, you never want to give it up unless you break your spine.
Wow.
So I would never have given up tennis if I hadn't broken my spine.
So were you like a Gordie Howe, what's it called? Gordie Howe hat trick type of guy, or were you like a speedy scorer, playmaker? What were you like? What are you like a hockey player?
A Gordie Howe hat trick is a goal, an assist, and a fight
That's
in the
right.
same game.
Exactly.
I've had one of each of those in different games, but never in the same game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
In college hockey, you weren't allowed to fight.
Okay.
You get suspended for
That's
a
good.
long time. So,
Good.
yeah, which is really good. It made the game much more competitive, and you get to show your athleticism instead of your brute force, which is kind of cool. Wish the NHL would do that here. Get rid of fights there.
Yeah, right, for sure.
They're not part of the game anymore.
How long did you play at Colgate? How long was that? Like,
I played on and off for a year,
Okay.
2 years, something like that, and I got injured. So
were you playing tennis already, or did you start tennis after that?
after my 5th collarbone break,
Wow.
I gave my hockey equipment to my ex-brother-in-law,
Wow.
and I knew I would never play again.
Crazy.
So I took up tennis. So
Was it breaking in the same spot because it had already been? Were you more susceptible?
each side, I broke one 3 times and the other twice. If you ran your fingers across my collarbone, you'd see it would go like that, not like this. So
Something I admired that you've done, and I've tried to do that with some of my kids, and I love international travel. But you've taken your kids all over the place. You've told me about some of them. You did some really amazing international trips,
I
right?
have a good memory.
Yeah.
When I got divorced, I decided that the only long stretch I would have my kids without having to transfer custody was over Christmas every other year. So I decided to take them to visit a different continent every other year.
That's amazing.
So we made it through 12 years, 6 different
Wow,
continents.
that's awesome.
And then I screwed it up by getting hurt.
Right.
So I couldn't go. we still have Antarctica to go to.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
hopefully one day we'll get there.
That's cool, right?
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Antarctica. So what was do you have a favorite or a couple of trips that you want, like, that you could share? I'm sure they were all amazing, and I've always been happy to go anywhere with my kids, so spending time with them and seeing something new but you did a hell of a lot of stuff, so.
22 days, 22 days, 11 different hotels in 4 different countries in Africa.
Wow, that's awesome.
2 different countries, Tanzania and South Africa. And when I got home, I really needed a vacation.
Right.
I was exhausted.
Right.
And Australia too. We went for 3 weeks and we saw 4 different cities and all kinds of different stuff. So it was kind of neat. My kids remember some of it, not all of it. They were pretty young.
Okay. And how did that work? Like, did you basically tell them, hey, this is where we're going to go? Or how did you prepare them for the trips? And
when I got to the airport with them on the first trip, we went to Australia. I had gotten each of them the same color backpack, and each of the bags had the same different busy toys in them. And I said, no fighting with each other, no stealing from the other person. I said, if you're asleep on the plane, if you're awake on the plane and everybody else is asleep, you let your brother and sister or your 2 sisters sleep, and you wake me up. I said, if you break the rules, we don't go. So my oldest daughter loves to travel, Emily, and she was basically my policewoman. She basically said, Dad, he did this. So she would keep them honest with their travels. So it ended up working out pretty well. They were happy to be with me and happy to be anywhere. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware. Do you have any grandchildren yet? Do any of them have kids yet, or not yet, or like?
No pressure, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I shouldn't bring that up.
No kids, not yet.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
So tell me too, like, you've always had a great sense of humor, and I don't know if you attribute that to anyone, or you're just yourself, or your observations of the world type of thing, or where does that come from?
My brother and father.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at, my dad died 14 years ago, but he was a very accomplished businessman, very serious at what he did. But when he could turn off the serious switch, he was a very jovial, happy, quick-witted guy. So I guess part of that rubbed off. So it's kind of good.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we were talking before about, it's interesting because the things you've lived through and lived through, and how it's hard sometimes for people to know what they could do as a hand up, so to speak, right? Like I think ideally we should all be able to ask for a hand up when things are tough, but that's difficult and complex, and not everybody knows what to say or what to do or what to ask. But what type of things would you say to again, lighten the mood around that, just like people have to just feel like they can engage and not be afraid to talk to their friends who may have a tough time, and if there's ways to do it. But what do you think about all that? Like, how can society, or how can people move forward a little bit more with that?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah.
You could probably help me with the answer because you went through it. So, I mean, the way I went through it was, I'm not going to die. There's no way anybody's going to over-medicate me and numb my brain out to die. I want to live. So I would ask people around me who would come and visit, could you tell that doctor not to bring pills to me? I don't want them. And then the doctors would come in and say, you need them. And I go, I want to try it without it.
Right.
I want to try and do it without it.
Right.
The help I would say is that if you're the one who's in the bad position, just ask the people you trust. Just ask them to lend you a helping hand and say, I can't pick this up. Can you pick it up for me?
Right.
Or can you help find a psychologist for me? Because do you know one? Do you know anybody from word of mouth? Have your parents or siblings ever gone through any psychological challenges where they could actually help me out? Because I'm human too.
Yeah. And
I have a need for certain things. I'm not sure if it's at the level that I'm going to die or anything like that, but I want to live happier and I want to live healthier and a sane life. I mean, the story you told me about having to go to Asia, to me, it was a great opportunity if you didn't have any children. But what's the most important thing?
Right.
Is to make sure you're with your kids.
Right.
And you're nurturing and there for them when they need you. I mean, you wouldn't have had kids if you're gonna just say, I'm going for the money, I'll send the money home.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's a few that do that.
Right.
But not the Geoff Moores of the world that I know, that's for sure.
I'll tell you two interesting stories, very short, but when I first got hospitalized because I couldn't sleep much, I did have paranoia. I did have some paranoia. And when you get hospitalized, you're served with papers to protect yourself. Like, you're not allowed to leave the ward for 5 weeks because there are some people they're afraid could be a danger to others, and other people that could be a danger to themselves, right? And if I was a danger to anybody, it would have been myself, but I was just lost. And so when they started giving me medication, I used to ask to take it in the bathroom to get some water, and they didn't want me to do that. But I would dump it down the drain or flush it down the toilet because I didn't want to touch anything. I didn't trust anybody giving me anything. And then later on, when I was getting back to more normal, they also recommended that I be put on medication for a very long time. And I was exactly like you. I was like, I don't want that, because I was completely frazzled or knocked out at times with what they gave me. And I said, I don't want that. I think I want to battle through this. So I'm grateful too that, and I think, some similarities with that small or that aspect, right? Like I wanted to become who I was again and not be reliant, if I didn't need to be, on medication. So
not everybody has that strength of character though. So I mean, people are just happy to get free pills, but they don't realize the detriment they can cause them. I mean, that's why they have doctors and psychologists or psychiatrists around them to say, look, Geoff, if you don't take that pill, you could die.
Yeah.
I mean, if you heard that, you'd take the damn pill.
Right, that's right. That's right.
You would.
And what started, you explained that after maybe 11 months, you were saying before, and you can clarify that, but there was a period when you came back that if you saw people that you knew, you didn't necessarily want to see them. So what started turning that around for you? And was there anybody, and you don't have to name people specifically, but were there people who were giving you that hand up to in combination with your own fighting spirit to kind of say, to move beyond that?
My brother.
Your brother.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy was, he's 2 years older than me, and we worked together for a long time, and we joke around a lot, but the serious part of that was basically he's saying you got to live, get out there, and no one's going to laugh at you
absolutely,
or feel like they're going to make you cry. Go out there. There's a movie theater around the corner. They'll let you in. I mean, there's places for you to go.
Right.
So I would go. You know, it's and that he was pretty instrumental in that for sure.
Right.
You know, my kids too.
Right. Fantastic.
My kids. You know, they say you've been in the hospital for 11 months. Now that you're out, you got to go out. You can't just stay at home.
Right.
You know, there's only so much television you can watch.
Right.
So that's basically it. Family, brother, a couple of friends were there too. Awesome. I have a group of 8 golf friends that I used to go on a golf trip with every year that I've been friends with for 40 years, and they're still always in touch. So it helps give me strength to have those people around. Do you have that too?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, family, absolutely, for sure. Like Krista, my wife, and you know, my sister, my mom, my kids, you know, other relatives, absolutely, and friends. And over time, you know, like I can tell you, when I wrote this article in this Concussion Legacy magazine in February, so then I was kind of really opening the kimono to say, and I said, look, I was, it's like most people want me to shut the kimono. Like I told you, they would rather, like, you know, if you wear the mask for COVID, if you can, or let's say on a Zoom call, they would be happier if I don't turn the camera on. Most people are like, Geoff, can you just shut your camera off? You know. But anyway,
no.
So I put the article out there, and then when I decided to do the podcast, I decided if I'm gonna be a voice to add to all those other people and organizations fighting stigma, then I cannot be afraid of it myself. So then I decided to put it on LinkedIn, and that's way out there because that's all my business contacts and stuff. And I decided, you know, so all to say, like, the more people heard about it, the more they were like, of course they're supportive, I think. And anybody who can't understand, then I think, or can't relate, or is a stigmatizer, I think that's why I try to go back to this simple universal example with the weight. Everybody will get hit with something in their lifetime, and unfortunately none of us are going to be here in 150 years. That's why hopefully we'll have a rematch somewhere else someday, at least, if obviously more, but you know, like stigma is bullshit, and bullies or toxic cultures that force people in difficult situations to hide and not seek help or get help, do a lot of damage in society. And so if we can get into a simpler, like, you know, there but for the grace of God go I, when you can give a hand up, try to give it. When you need a hand up, ask for it. You know,
I'm no spring chicken anymore, but I still feel like one.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that from my experience, most people are good.
Yeah,
they want to help.
Right.
You know, even Ryan would help me if I asked him, and he barely knows me.
Zacharie,
so,
right?
You know, what's that?
He's Zacharie.
Okay. But I'm saying that
I agree. But then that's where, you know, if you have other thoughts on it, because you brought up something really important before, that is wonderful, but there's a bridge that's missing sometimes.
There's also psychologists. My daughter happens to be a clinical health psychologist, and she's urging me to consult more with people of qualified profession.
Right, makes sense.
It's also less dangerous.
Sure.
It means that instead of me confiding in someone who knows nothing about the human psyche but knows about kindness, and then going to a psychologist who can do both, that's even better.
Makes sense.
You know, and I'm sure they have public clinics where people can, if they can't afford psychologists, they can just walk in, and the psychologists don't judge people.
Right.
They give you a platform to vent or to share your insecurities.
Right.
You know?
That's a huge point. And it's interesting because there are a lot of psychologists out there and a lot of psychiatrists out there. And why is that? Because life is complex and plays hardball at times and can be overwhelming for so many reasons, right? So if we can talk more about that, I think it helps people. You know, and I've been very happy that certain people have come forward to talk on future discussions, you know, and I mean, it's like if we come to the point where we say, look, physical and mental health are intrinsic to the experience of being alive, and so if one isn't going well or the other's not going well, like why can we not respect everyone's right to seek that help? And why can't there be more, like if the healthcare system is underfunded here, or if there's long waiting lists, or it's too expensive, then there's a business opportunity, right? There's more online services now, like remote services. Sure. There's more this, and society could be rebuilt by entrepreneurs if we talk about it and if we try to move, you know, towards solutions, right? And people willing to share as you are, and I'm trying to do, and be honest and hopeful, and you know, and like I said, in this show, like, do you have anything specific that you would comment on that was most helpful or is most helpful for you, or if you just think for other people? You've already said that, like, hands up, you know what I mean? Like, anything else?
I stayed in the hospital for 11 months.
That's a long time.
3 different hospitals.
Yeah.
I barely knew what the outside world looked like. When I went out for fresh air, it was so joyous to get outside.
Wonderful.
You know, but the hospitals themselves, they were very limited. You could find the good people who cared right away. So I would basically wheel myself over to them as often as I possibly could. I would do a victory lap every day I got out of bed. It took me 90 minutes to get out of bed.
Wow.
90 minutes. And I don't even have any hair. If I had hair, they would, I'm serious, they would have to, like women who have this kind of injury, they need their hair done every day. Right. So it's another 20, 30 minutes to do that. So by the time you get out of bed, it's midday already. Right. So when I get out, I do like a victory lap with the guy walking with the PAB, the préposé, walking down the hallway with me, and he would laugh with me. He goes, "You really like getting out of bed?" I go, "I can't stand being in bed. There's nothing to do,
sure.
And I can't even move when I'm there."
Right.
So it was like a thrill for me to get out. So hopefully that rubbed off too. Right. I mean, a good attitude isn't a bad thing. Like I told you before, I'm injured from my neck down, not from my neck up.
Right.
So I'm trying to use that to create positivity, even if sometimes I'm negative. You know, in my own brain, it's tiring. It's not easy to live like this. Right. It's really to have somebody feed you all the time. It's not exactly what you ordered. You know.
Sure.
You want to be able to do it yourself.
Right. Well, we've had a good long conversation. I'm extremely happy because I've also signed you up for $1 a year with considerations. So the considerations hopefully will bring a lot more, and we'll have some good dialogues about that.
You're going to need my brother to sign. He's my power of attorney. Yeah.
Well, I'm paying you. You don't need to pay me, right? You got the $1 plus the considerations. Maybe I don't want him involved to renegotiate the contract. Like, if you've agreed already, like, let's not break the contract.
Money's not an issue. Don't worry. For that, anyway. Yeah.
So, anything else you wanted to say, or any other comments? I mean, it's just great to see you, and you know, that's it.
I do have one comment. Geoff Moore is a hell of a nice guy to be able to offer his time to spread the good word to people who need to get assistance. And I urge you to listen to what our talk is about. We're 2 happy, well-adjusted people. So hopefully you can be part of that group too.
Yeah, super. Thanks, David.
Okay.